Good morning. I'm Paul Melrose, Assisting Pastor of Pastoral Care here at First United Methodist Church of Madison, welcoming all of you, both those here locally and those who have found us on the web and virtually, to our Friday devotions. Today, as I begin, you'll see a quote coming up on the screen that I'm going to read for you. Nonviolence means avoiding not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. You not only refuse to shoot a man, but you refuse to hate him. That's a quote, as you saw on the slide you just saw, from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A man who knew much about violence, who lived the racial divide, who walked literally in front of it and on it. And here we are today, as some have said, in the midst of two pandemics, the pandemic of COVID-19 and the reawakening, if you will, of the pandemic of racism. It's never gone away. It's been with us all in our history. And one might say, given the amount of demonstrations worldwide, even today as we speak, it touches the nerve for people of color and people not of color worldwide. The particular piece of this quote that struck me was the phrase, internal violence of the spirit. And I was struck by that. I know my spirit has been violated in many ways from the very simplistic notion of the way I celebrate, the way I move around, the spiritual refreshment I get from other places and other people. And all that's changed. That's been perhaps a violation of the sort. Certainly the violation of our spirits as we live somewhat still in fear and anxiety, even though numbers in some places are decreasing, we still have the awareness that there are spikes, and this will continue to happen if history of other pandemics are true. We will be living with this challenge to our spirits for a long time to come. And so even to leave my home and have to wear a mask, and even here in the sanctuary today, the first time I've been back, to make sure I'm physically distant from others in the building. It's not the same as just hanging out, is it? But all of this is kind of simplistic when compared to the violence of the spirit that Dr. King referred to, and we have seen being lived out across the country for the last 8 or 9 days in demonstrations, many of which turned to violence. It leads one to feel like, as presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, Michael Curry, has said, there's such frustration it could lead to fatalism or despair. And what could that look like? Well, he says, even though he recommends a different path, a path of love, before we get there, what we see are all these things that show us how far we've strayed from that path. Love does not look like the harm being caused by so many to so many, the protesters in our cities or the police. Violence against person is violence against a child of God and ultimately violence against God. That's blasphemy. The root of genuine justice and true human dignity and equality is then denied by the very God who gave us love and those other values. Love does also not look like silence or complicity of what's going on. Those of us who are used to tranquility rather than justice. Dr. King and others have also said peace is not simply the absence of tension. Peace comes about through the confrontation of that which takes away true peace in relationships from all. What does love look like? Here are some suggestions that Bishop Curry gives us. Love looks like channeling our holy rage into concrete and productive, powerful action In this moment, love can look like voting for leadership at local, state, and federal levels. That will be votes for reform, votes for true equality, votes for attacking injustices, both by those in uniform and those not in uniform. Love looks like calling on officials and demanding that they fulfill their duty to protect the dignity of every child of God. Love looks like making the long-term commitment to racial healing, justice, and truth-telling. Love looks like working with local police departments to build relationships with the community and develop mechanisms that hold officers accountable, but also supports them in the difficult job that they have. It means ensuring that no police officer with a history of unauthorized force or racialized violence is shielded and allowed to endanger the lives of others. Love looks like all of us, you and me, whether we're still confined to our homes or we're able to take safe walks or we're actually out now about in safe ways shopping at some of the merchants who desperately need our business. Love is every people of God's earth, of every race and religion and national origin and political affiliation saying, enough, we can do better than this. What does love look like? I believe Bishop Curry says that what it looks like is what Jesus of Nazareth taught us. It looks like the biblical Good Samaritan. It looks like the outsider who spends time and money healing. One of the examples here in Madison, but also in other cities, are those protesters and police officers and others who embrace and then kneel or march together. One of the ways that love is seen is in the volunteers cleaning up the damage and the destruction created by so many protesters. What America has seen in the past several days may leave us wondering what we can possibly do in this moment to be good Samaritans. But we do, brothers, sisters, and siblings, have the answer. Now is the time for the national renewal of ideals of human equality, liberty, and justice for all. That goes from such things as sharing your love for others by wearing masks and being socially distant, to also committing ourselves to cherishing, in the way I just described, and in other ways, cherishing and respecting all lives, honoring the dignity and infinite worth of every child of God. Now is the time for all of us to show in our words and actions and lives what love really looks like. What does love really look like? Take a look at this closing slide. I know you've seen it. It's a wonderful slide. It was prophetic at the time that it first was shown. It comes from an early broadcast of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he sits down with Officer McFeely, who's tired from walking the beat in the neighborhood of make-believe. They sit down and have a refreshing moment. Black meets white, child of God meets child of God, ordained Presbyterian pastor and storyteller meets a uniformed service person. That's one of the examples of what love looks like, brothers and sisters and siblings. You'll find others in your own life. You'll contribute to other ways that love is expressed even in this shutdown time. For the ways that you find ways to express love, see it, and see that love made known to each other's. God thanks you because you are part of the instruments of God's peace in this world. Thanks be to God. Amen.